from America, from England, from Scotland. I've seen various places pop up already. It's great that it's a truly international conversation with our speaker this afternoon, Catherine, who's based in Kenya. So my name is Vicki Sellick. I'm one of the trustees at Wevolution. I'm also part of Nesta, the UK's Innovation Foundation, and have the privilege of being in conversation with Catherine again. We've spoken a few times, and I have to say her story is fascinating, and there are a great number of things we can learn from her model of true empowerment of women in Kenya. So I'm really looking forward to diving into a conversation with her later. It's worth saying that a few of you might not be familiar with Wevolution or with the SRG model. And for those of you who aren't, self-reliant groups, or SRGs, are close communities, often of women, coming together to support one another. Particularly through Wevolution, they save together each week a small amount of money and choose to meet up at a fixed time each week. And in doing so, create a set of shared interests, perhaps learning how to cook a particular set of dishes, or how to build or craft something that can be sold later. And as these groups build their skills in whatever they're learning and their connection with each other, they go on to form enterprises, to earn money themselves, and to be able to use that savings pot collectively, whether it's to make loans to each other to further their business interests or to help each other out in a hard time. And we found particularly the power of this model is both about giving freedom, confidence, the ability to earn money yourself, but also really about having a community, having connection, having confidence, knowing that you are loved and cared for and valued by a community of fellow women. And yeah, these self-reliant groups are modeled based on those that take place in India, where there are millions of self-reliant groups. And it's in fact the 10th anniversary of Wevolution first seeing these in India and visiting them in person. Many of our members went back this year to see them again. And so it's lovely to see how far the movement has already grown in 10 years, both in Scotland, in Glasgow, in Clyde, Dumfries, all sorts of places, but also in Manchester, in Wales, in the Netherlands. Really the movement is growing with people wanting to take this particularly self-led, self-reliant model rather than an interventionist model to support women in communities. So today is the first in a series of conversations which are being held by the David Hume Institute and by Wevolution. And a few of you have already mentioned in the chat, this doesn't look like a normal Zoom call. It's actually a webinar. So unfortunately, the only faces you'll see are mine, but less unfortunately, the lovely Catherine's as well. But that means if you're worried, don't worry, your microphone isn't on, your camera isn't on, we can't see what you're doing at home. But I would love you to interact and engage. Please, as other people are doing now, interact on the chat. You can add your name, tell us where you are in the world, tell us what you know about self-reliant groups or how you
Hi everyone, it's Heather here. So we've just lost Vicki for a moment. We'll hang on and hope that she will be able to join us very soon. We just want to say a huge welcome to part one of our Global Series event. It's really, really exciting to have you here and to have Catherine join us from Kenya. We'll just give Vicki a chance to join us. Oh, I'm back. Welcome.
Sorry, my slip died. So yeah, closed captions if you need it. Thank you for taking over.
You're very welcome.
Let's get on, just in case my internet dies again. Let's talk to Catherine, shall we? So Catherine, you are the founder and profound innovator, multiple-time innovator of Lifeboom Services International based in Kenya. Thank you for joining us. It would be great to hear all about how your story started. So let's go back. It's 1999, more than 20 years ago. You're an incredibly high-performing, overachieving headmistress of the local school, and you're doing incredible things in your town in Kenya, but you spot something else is going on and decide to take a different path. Introduce us to your story and tell us more.
Thank you very much, Vicki and Revolution, for having me here. And yes, it is 1999. I am about 31 years old, and I'm doing very well as a high school principal. And then it happens. I begin to feel some kind of instability coming from the inside of me, getting very unstable about the job I was doing. Not because I did not love teaching or being an administrator of a high school, but because I was experiencing young girls under my care who were going through very difficult times. And in 2001, one parent sat across from my table, and she had her daughter at home because she could not pay the school fee, the money needed for her to continue with learning. And I told this parent, I cannot keep your daughter in school anymore until you pay all the money or part of the money. She looked at me and with a very, very deep heart said to me, if you send my daughter back home, she will most certainly join me in the trade, in the work that I do. I asked her, what do you do? And she said, I sell my body to keep my daughter in school, to keep my children in school. That was my turning point, 2001. And that was June. That did not leave me. It was a Friday evening. It did not leave me. It never left me on Monday. And what I knew was that I needed to step out of that office space, go out to the field, go out to the streets, go out to some other space and support women who are suffering, women who had to sell their bodies, not because they loved it, but because our very patriarchal society, because our very systems and structures did not allow for women, especially those without an education, to rise above the circumstances in their families. Yet majority of my parents were single mothers, those who were parents in the school that I taught. And yes, come the end of 2001, I submitted my letter of resignation from the government. All these reflections happened when I was taking my master's class at the University of Durham in the UK. And when I got back home, on landing, I told my husband, Joseph, I am resigning. He asked, where are you going? I said, I do not know. I think he had had enough of my drama, and he just went silent. I went home and told my dad, Dad, I am resigning. And he asked me, where are you going? I said, I do not know. And he looked me in the eyes and told me, daughter, take up the challenge. I resigned, and off I went to the streets.
It's absolutely incredible, Catherine, to hear how it all began and that real sense that there was something more profound going on, and that calling almost that you must do something, you must help these women. So what did you do? You've resigned. How did it all start? How did Life Bloom begin to come? Which group of women did you work with first?
2002, I was pregnant with my second child, my son. And so I was at home, jobless. I had negotiated my way out of a payroll. And I had a house help, a nanny, who worked for me during the day and went back to her house in the evening. Also, I thought, until I caught her, quote unquote, 2 or 3 times over sleeping during the day, more than a nap. And I asked her, why? What makes you sleep? And she said, after a couple of weeks, she told me, I'll give you the reason. I'll tell you why. She said, I have 9 children. 6 are my children by birth. 3 are my brother's children. My brother and his wife died, so they are orphans and they are with me. I have chosen not to allow the children to go to the street. Instead, when I leave your house at 5 p.m. every evening, I go back at my house, check if there's something to cook, if there's food, well and good. If there's no food, I leave the children in the house and I go out to the streets to work throughout the night, to service men, and come back in the morning and come back to your house. And that's the reason why I must catch sleep in the afternoon, because I work throughout the night. I sat her down, we had a conversation. This time counseling was very fresh. The skills were very fresh on me because I had just graduated from Durham, University of Durham. And from there, we began talking about our children, how they go to school, join school. They were not in school at all. So I went knocking in every school that I could lay my hands on and ask whether there was a vacancy for one more child. I called my friends together and we were able to pay the money for school. Remember, I was jobless, so I did not have a penny to my name, to my payroll. So we bought uniform, we paid school fees, and out of the 9 children, 6 of them joined school. That was 2003, January. And the friends to this woman who was my nanny kept asking her, what is making you change? What's happening? And she'd tell them, come and see. Before long, I had 16 women. Before long, they brought others and they could not fit in my small house. And I got a little space in town, got my first office where the 16 plus women could come for a therapy session every Wednesday. And it all seemed like the pattern was the same. I did not go to school. You see, my brothers were educated. I was not educated. You see, I got a baby when I was in high school or primary school. You see, I could not go back to school. My father sent me away. My mother could not hear of it, that I was bringing another child into the family. I came to town, Naivasha town. I got a few friends. They showed me how to make easy money. But by the time they are talking about easy money, they are crying. And I knew it was not easy money. It was very hard earned money, where they had to negotiate, where they had to trade their dignity for money to place food on the table, for money to take their children back to school or to have their children get an education. And I began to wonder what to do with 100 plus women. And a friend of mine told me, you know what, you can register a nonprofit. And I registered Life Group Services International. That was 2004.
That's fantastic, Catherine, and so heartbreaking as the comments in the chat to hear the stories, not just of one woman, but of 16 women and then 100 women, and how profound that you were able to create a safe space where they felt like they could tell the truth, they could be honest, and also just physically be in an environment with you, be in this building with you in town. You mentioned therapy a few times, and that's your background and your degree training. How has that sort of sense of therapy and of counselling influenced the sort of things that you have built up in and around supporting the women?
One, I'm really grateful that the therapy that I learned, the skills I learned at Durham University of Durham, are skills that were towards the person-centered approach by Carl Rogers, where we believe that the client has solutions to want to go. And I think that kind of got the baggage, the luggage, whatever it was, out of my shoulders, that I didn't have to tell them where to go. They knew what they wanted with their lives. And part of what they wanted with their lives, as it is shown in my very new first book. I'm an author, I have authored 3 books, and my first book is titled A Walk at Midnight. And the women speak very, very in-depthly about what it is that they want. So the counseling skills that I had learned, and which I was very eager to practice, told me, you only have to create the safe space. and the women will know where they want to go with their lives and for their children as well. And within no time, with the 100 plus women in 2004, we received the first funding from an organization in the US. And before long, the women just began to put themselves into groups. In Kenya, we have what you call the self-help groups. But for quite a long time, because these women faced difficulties together, but again were marginalized because we are not very kind to those who are out in the streets. We stigmatize them, we marginalize them. So a long time they did not have an organization or a platform on which they would feel safe enough to develop their self-help groups or working collectively to achieve the goals of educating their children, paying the rent, or even putting food on the table. And by 2006, with more than 500, 600 women and counting, it was like, okay, these therapy issues are large. Catherine is the only counselor. By this time, I had two most members of staff, but they did not have a counseling background. And I thought, maybe if I speak with the Kenya Counselors Association, they would allow for me, or they would support me to create a curriculum, a syllabus, to train some of the women to become counselors. And I went to the Kenya Counseling Association and they said, Catherine, we cannot do this. This is just meant to be for professionals. They must have gone to school. And here I am with 600 plus women who have not seen the doors to a classroom or even gone to high school at all. And I said, I will create one. I am a teacher. That's my first graduate school. I am a teacher. I can create a curriculum, and I'm going to create a curriculum for peer counselors at Life Services International. 2008, and we trained the first 62 counselors who were the group leaders or the leaders for the self-help groups that were created then. We started off with 2, 3, 24. Today we have 36 registered self-help groups for the women who were formerly marginalized and stigmatized, and today they are really rising and soaring like eagles.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I think we're at a sort of similar stage with Weevolution, actually, around 50 self-reliant groups registered across Scotland where women are choosing to come together collectively. And I hear in what you're saying, Catherine, some of the things, my work at Nesta, sort of analysing innovation and thinking about ecosystems of innovation and what supports people. And quite often we say of our most promising innovators, our most fertile innovators, that they have this attitude, which is like someone says no, and they say yes and. And I love in your story there where someone says, why on earth would we allow these people to be counsellors or to have a training curriculum or to do this work themselves? And you said, hang on, yes and, you know, surely there's a way, surely there's a route through, surely there's a possibility here, and you find a new solution. Think of a different way to approach things. I love hearing that that is sort of in you and in your character too. But I also heard you say a few things about the sort of almost the values of these self-led groups. You were talking about women acting collectively, feeling that they had a sort of group responsibility or group agency, and also a little bit about this idea that, what did you say? You said the women know. The women know. You were talking about, we don't need professionals. The women know. They can be upskilled. The women know what they want to do with their lives. They know what their next step is. I think that's two values that we definitely see also in the SRG movement, this sense of collectiveness, that we want to do things together, but also that the women know that there's no need for someone from the outside to tell people what to do. The women know. So tell me more. Are those some of the values? What other values do you see in your work and in your self-led groups?
I love that you keep saying the women know. Yes, they do. They did. They always have had this knowing. All what they needed is a safe environment, one that is non-judgmental, one that does not look at them as women from the street, one that does not look at them as women who have failed in their marriages, one that does not look at them as women who cannot raise their children because they are drunk with alcohol or drugs or whatever else. They know, and their dreams and visions are large, they are big, just like mine and yours and everybody else who is on this panel, on this platform tonight. They know. And this means building a culture of acceptance, irrespective. Acceptance of any woman, any girl, any man who walks in through our doors. And on that, personally, as Catherine, I don't negotiate. My colleagues, we are now 10 of us, 9 of us. They know that. And there are no two ways to it. Our doors remain open. And we keep the culture of open the doors to your heart, not just the physical doors to our office. So that anybody can, and everybody can feel comfortable enough to step in. And this is the same thing and culture that we're teaching the mentors that we have on the program. And as I said, we started off with 62. Today we have more than 1,600 mentors who also carry the value or commit to the value of paying it forward. This is not yours. It has to go through you to the next person. It has to go through you to your peers, to those out in the streets. It's more of a movement than an organization, a non-profit. It's more of a movement. And we're also talking about creating safe space around yourself. The safe space is not just in the office or in your house. Let you be the person who can be stopped along the way as you're walking across town by a woman or a man or a child who is in trouble. And you have time to actively listen to the other person. We listened to you. Go out and give it out. Go out and spread it out. And that's the reason why, Vicki, today we are boasting of more than 10,600 women, girls, and men beneficiaries of our program.
That's absolutely amazing. What a staggering number. Tell us more. Tell us more about, tell us a story of someone, one of these 10,000, where you've seen a real impact because of this approach.
I'll not mention her name. I was with her yesterday. And on the day I spoke with you, Vicki, on Wednesday, you realized we were talking, I was in the car because I was in another function. This lady joined Life in 2004. And she was bad news, quote unquote, bad news, real bad news. And the chief, who is an administrator of the location or the zone where this lady comes from, called me and asked me to go out and meet this lady at her house. And I did. She had 4 children. She has 4 children and went up to primary school 5, class 5 or 6, got married, left her marriage. By the time she was 21, 22, she was out in the streets because she had 4 children to feed, but no man in her life, and nobody taking a girl with 4 children to marry her again. I mean, that was not going to be possible. And her mom was also a woman coming from the streets. She joined a Life Room, and within a short period of time, her leadership qualities, potential was coming out so well that we'll find her conducting sessions even when the staff members have not joined the group. She's already taken up the leadership. And I said, look at this. So in 2008, she was trained among the 62 peer counselors. Then in 2009, I graduated with leadership through Women for the World at Santa Clara University in California with leadership, transformative leadership. And for me, the world was just starting again, was just beginning again. Got back home and integrated into the same curriculum. Now I integrated transformative leadership skills so that it was not just counseling, it was counseling and leadership. And this lady was amongst the first that we trained. Now, as we speak, she has a self-help group where she mentors young girls and other women. She has 6, actually not 1, but 6 self-help groups that she coordinates with more than 60 women. And that's the lady who is today raising the voice, amplifying the voice of those who are marginalized at our county government level. And to a point that just a month or so ago, when the policy for our county on gender issues was developed, I took her with me to the meeting. She stood up and said, hey guys, excuse me, women who are out and being prostituted have not been captured. Their needs are not captured in this policy document that we are reading today. So where are we? We are here in Naivasha. Where are we? We need this to be done. And on Monday this week, the draft that has been presented to our governor has the needs of the women out in the streets integrated, and we had it read out on Monday. On Wednesday, the day I spoke with you, she called me and asked me where I was, and I said, I have a meeting, but I'm also meeting this a group of 8 or 5 women. I have a meeting with somebody from Evolution. And I asked her to come over. She did. Before I could step out of the car after my meeting with you, Vicki, this lady was already speaking to the group and telling them it is possible. These are women who are now moving out of sex work at this time, and telling them it is possible. I was there. I did all what you're talking about. I experienced all this abuse. I was exploited. I have 4 children to my name. Now they are adults and they are all working. It is possible. And after my conversation with you, I stepped out of the car. I looked at her and I shed tears.
Absolutely, as I feel like I might now, even just hearing this story from afar. What an incredible impact this movement has had. I love, by the way, that you call them life groups. This idea that it's giving life and nurturing life, I think is really, really captivating. We sort of sometimes wonder how do we get these things to grow? How do we get them to scale? And you've got this incredible story of scale from 1 to 16 to 10,000. We've thought a little bit of Weevolution over the last few years. You know, how do we get this model that we're really captivated by and think is brilliant to grow? And for a long time, we wondered, should we be a franchise, essentially? You know, a bit like McDonald's. Basically, if you want to run a self-reliant group, here's the logo, here's the toolkit, you must do this, you must do that, you can't do this, etc. And we actually steered away from that because we felt like we wanted to be a movement. We felt like it was much more within our values that we said, we don't own this thing, we help facilitate it, but we are proud to be part of a wider movement. And I heard you use that word movement earlier. Tell me, as sort of movement building been the way that you have grown Life Bloom as well?
Yes. And not just a movement, but a movement that is self-propelling. You don't have to push. We don't push. It just keeps growing. It just keeps expanding. From the 62 women we trained in 2008, as we speak, one of them is the chairperson of the board of directors at Life. And apart from, I think we lost 3 or 4 along the way, they died. And all the others, we keep tabs, we keep track, and all of them are either working in organizations or with the government, or they're working in their own businesses. But all of them have a history of just expanding and expanding. And, you know, every day there's somebody new who joins the organization or the movement. And apart from that, we have, in the last 3 years, the women groups, the 36 of them, and also girls clubs, because we are now working among teen moms, girls who have become pregnant when they're young and they're in their teenage and they're out there, they're not in school anymore, and taking them back to school. Amongst them, we have created 2 parallel lines of movement. One is called Women Champions for Change, where we have the 36 groups. And we have Girls Champions for Change, where we have 6 clubs right now, preparing them not just for supporting each other when there is they have challenges in school fee to pay school fees, or when they have challenges to get food, or when they have challenges to, but also to celebrate together, to face difficulties, like the COVID season. It's the self-help groups in the movement that held the women together. They're the ones who shouted, who called and said, we have these households in our neighborhood that are going without food. Their houses have been locked up because they cannot pay rent. And as Life Group, we began to fundraise, and we got quite a lot of money, I would say, to support the more than 280 households during the COVID season. However, not without the mentors or the leaders in the movement already looking for resources amongst themselves and supporting some of the families. And those who are in self-help groups already had done their savings, whether it was to buy a parcel of land or to take children to school. That's the money they went back to. They went to the banks, withdrew the money, and they were able to have food and have their children, clothing and rent and anything that was needed during the very difficult times of the COVID time. Oh yes, it's a movement that is telling the women and the men, they know where they want to go and they have solutions in their hands. And this is a movement that Life Group is expanding.
This is brilliant. There's a few questions beginning to come in the Q&A. So to anyone else, if you'd like to ask questions, do add them in and I'll ask them to Catherine in a minute. But just before I go to those, you mentioned COVID just there, Catherine. I know it's had a huge impact around the world, lots of businesses having to close, lots of people whose jobs are suddenly at risk, income streams that change. Certainly at Weevolution, we've had to close, very sadly, some of our bases, our hubs, where women would sometimes get together to make things or to use shared tools and resources. We've been really sad about that, but we've also seen that actually the connections are really strong. And in this time, women have come together and said, don't worry, it doesn't matter if the development worker can't visit us because of COVID restrictions, or it doesn't matter if we can't be physically together, we still care for one another and we'll keep going on our WhatsApp group, or we'll keep meeting up one-to-one. It's actually been, it's really unearthed some truths about our movements. Tell me, what's the impact of COVID been like on Life Bloom and on your life groups?
I think it's important for me to mention here that we don't just work with women who have left the streets. We also work amongst women who are still in the streets. And especially those who are willing to live the street life, whose circumstances are, if I have an alternative income stream, I will jump into that for that opportunity immediately. And so COVID brought kind of like 2 different consequences or repercussions. One, in Kenya, we had the curfew. We were not at the lockdown, but we had curfew that you get back to the house by 7 o'clock, by 8 o'clock, 9 p.m. I think now the curfew is at 11 o'clock. Yet, this is the time that those who are out in the streets go out to fend for their families. And that meant that they had to stop going out to the streets because the men are also at home. That was one group. The other group are those who had alternative income streams, who were already maybe in business, or who are employed and their jobs, just abruptly were cut off from their jobs. So for the first group, they began to do much more of home-based sex work. which is not a very good thing, considering that the children were at home and are still at home because the schools were closed. And this is one of the, the crying, the tears that women have really had to bear with during this time. They're coming to us for counseling because the men who are they're moving out with, they don't meet them anymore. And when they have to do it from their homes, then they don't know what to do with their children. Yet then we have the other women who had taken steps and left the street work. Majority of them relapsed. There was nothing else to do, so they were looking for clients alongside the women who were still in sex work. And this was quite a hard thing for all of us when we started off. And this is where we began to work to cushion the women, looking for funds, for resources, crying out to our international friends to help us, some of who are on this platform today, I can see 2 or 3 of them, to support us to be able to give food to these households as they began to rise from the effects of the pandemic. Now, very, very interesting, but also a very bad thing happened, that when the government was issuing food in the first 3 months of COVID, March through to July or thereabout, our women were not registered because they are not in, some of them are not in groups, self-help groups. So the government was using the registration of groups, which is in the government with the government department. Yet majority of our women, especially those who are in sex work today, are not registered. So they were left out as far as food was concerned, food distribution was concerned. As far as education on prevention of COVID is concerned, they were left out. And we raised that. We woke up and told the government officers, you know what? This is not going to happen when Life Bloom is still in this county. And I remember personally, one time working alongside one organization, it's global, I won't mention the name, and they wanted us to go give food to a certain community because that community is registered with the government. And I got very angry with that, and I asked, tell me something. So those who are not registered, whose data is not with the government, are you telling me that they're not Kenyans? They're not citizens? They don't have a right to government food? And because we had some resources, we had some money given to us by our friends in the US, I told this organization, go ahead and give food to the government registered person. Life Bloom, and I'm saying this as a CEO, my stand is this: we are giving food to those who are not registered. Today, as we speak, all our women have received food from the government.
That's brilliant. I have to say, Catherine, I don't ever want to be in an argument with you because I have a funny feeling you are incredibly persuasive. You stand up for what is right. And you get stuff done. It is brilliant to hear that you won't let these women be pushed aside because of bureaucracy, right? As it leads on to one of the questions, Jane has sort of put a comment in one of these questions. So Jane Gosnell saying, it's been really inspirational to hear your story and also to understand that sexual exploitation, is real both in the UK and in Kenya. And quite often when we stand against it, when we resist it, we are ourselves called names. We are ourselves sort of pushed back. So thank you so much for sharing. It's really inspiring, Jane, and I think lots of other people to keep fighting, she says, for my sisters to be free, as well as keep helping self-reliant groups to grow. I absolutely agree. And we've got another question about what's the response? So you're speaking to government partners and saying, well, look, you're not accounting for these women. Well, look, you're not allowing them to access food. Look what's going on. How does the system respond to you? Are you seen as an agitator, an insurgent, an upstart? What tends to be the government response to you and your work?
Thank you very much, Vicki, for those very kind remarks. And yes, And it's not just the government, but also our churches. In Africa, in Kenya, we are very religious persons. No, without due respect. And I am Catholic, born and raised Catholic. And I'll start from there instead of first going to the government. I remember in 2006, I had condoms on my table, and my priest walked in to my office. And he saw the condom, and he asked me, Catherine, are you still Catholic? I said, yes, Father, I am Catholic. Catherine, what are you doing with condoms? Boxes of condoms in your office and a box on your table. And I said, my priest, I am teaching women on how to use condoms because I have no alternative source of income for them. They must first protect themselves before they can make a choice whether to live and how to live. He looked me straight in the eyes and told me, yes, you are the real Catholic we are looking for. I told him, Father, I thought you'd tell me you're going to start working on my excommunication from my church. And he said, I want you to come and teach women how to rise above the doctrines of the church. I have the blessings from my priests. I am very happy. To the government, yes, and it's not easy. It's not easy. One time I was appointed, in 2011, I was appointed the chairperson for the board of directors for the water company in my area. And I had been appointed or selected to join the board. Because I represent women. I had interest to represent women at the board, and I was appointed. And the next time we had a board meeting, the first time we had a board meeting where I chaired, one of the government officers came to the meeting. When the meeting was done, he called me aside. Catherine, who are you? I told him, you know, I am a high school teacher. I am a counselor by profession. I don't know what and what and what. He told me, do you know why I came to this meeting? I said, no. I came to this meeting because the story doing its round within Naivasha is that the chief sex worker has been appointed as the chairperson of the water board, the water company. And we are not going to allow for that. So people are planning to demonstrate. The councillors, that's in the local government, are planning to have a demonstration against that. And I'm going back there to tell them, you have not seen a brilliant woman, call her a sex worker or anything else. You've not seen a brilliant woman like this one. Yes, Vicki, it's not been an easy journey. I have had to cry very many times, to shed tears, even in those offices. And I remember going to the water company the first day and I asked, how can we all be sitting here talking about giving water to areas where the rich live and leaving out the slum areas? But by the time I stepped out of that company after my term in 2017, 3 of the slum areas had water connected just about 10 or so steps away from their houses, away also from the doors to their houses. I had said no, I went there and I made sure that that happened. Yes, working with the government is not easy. I love to stand for them. I love to stand with them. And now that Lucy and other mentors are able to raise their voices even without me and my colleagues, I mean, there's no better joy than to hear them say, I went there, I said this, and the women now are given food by the government. I went there, I did this, and I said, we're not going to be marginalized or stigmatized because of this. You're studying in this space.
You're a true inspiration, Catherine. A true inspiration. This is great to hear. Tell me a bit more about the sort of government's response in the long term, because you meet this resistance in meetings, you hear these things said, and you can fight back on a sort of one-to-one basis. What about in general? Has the work that you've done changed how the government thinks of women? Has it changed how it provides support, the sort of wider policy environment?
Yes, and within my sub-county and my county of Nakuru, which is quite large, because I'll sit on these boards and I'll be listening and asking, so where are the women? And if the women are represented, I'm also asking, how about the marginalized women? Who raises their voices at these board meetings? So one of the things that I do, Vicki, is to make sure that if an issue or a challenge, especially exploitation of women, is eating into me, is destabilizing me, is causing turbulence in my systems, personal systems, then I'll try and join the board of particular government departments. That way, I can speak from the boardrooms with the men and the other women who probably think that being educated like I am, I have a master's degree, I'm right now going back for my PhD, that women start and end with us. No, women start and end with those who are down there. They are a representation of who we are.
I love that your answer is basically, does this company annoy me? If so, I'm getting in on the inside. I'm going to be inside and changing them from the inside out. I really like that. I really like that. Devinder is asking a lovely question about how on earth do you keep motivated through challenging times like COVID, but also when you've been really pushed back or told you're wrong? How do you stay motivated, Catherine?
I think it's very important to note that and to acknowledge that office is not a walk in the park. COVID came, we were all shaken. I personally was very shaken. I have children in high school, and when the president said we are closing all the schools and parents will need to travel to get pick their children from the boarding schools, I had 3 high school children, and I know my life almost stopped there. By Saturday, that was on a Sunday, but by Saturday, I woke up and wrote to all my colleagues, there are 9 of us, and said, you know what? At the end of the day, we are going to work from home, but we must be the torch bearers for hope. We can't lose this one. And that got to start from amongst ourselves. Let's talk about our fears. Let's share, let's have Zoom meetings from wherever we are and share about our fears, our struggles. The world looks like it's coming to an end, but we have more than 10,000 women looking up and wondering whether we are going to give or share hope. We knew some of them, of course, raised their flag, their green flag very early, and they were showing hope. But I think for me, I was almost destroyed. The first 1 week of COVID in Kenya, I was like, God, we cannot continue. But as we continue doing that, our women, my staff members began to reaching out to the groups. And the groups started to reach out to their peers. And it became a very expansive thing that we might not meet in the office anymore. We don't know for how long. We will not come to where you are unless it's absolutely necessary. But you know what? We've got to keep this going. So one of the things we did was to buy smartphones for our leaders on the ground, the women peer mentors on the ground. Buy them smartphones, teach them how to use smartphones, so that every zone there was communication between those mentors and their peers and the neighborhood, and we who are working from home. And that's how we got to learn that quite a number of households were going without food. That's how we got to learn how to keep moving back and forth in terms of how do we ensure that the fear that was in the media, the fear that was communicated through the media and through everybody else, every new case brought a new fear. The first death, I remember in Kenya, the first death almost stopped me in my tracks. Fortunately, and I'm really thankful about this, we have not had any of our women, any of our households report any COVID cases. We went back to the mentors. We trained them on COVID prevention for COVID-19. We bought water tanks and gave them soap. We trained a few of them how to make soap at home and then distribute it out to others. We got women making masks at home, and then we buy the masks and distribute them to communities. Yes, yes, yes. We have learned our lessons.
Women at home in Glasgow and across Scotland nodding along to that, because they too have been crafting soap. They too have been selling and making masks to be a kind of practical response to COVID and to these odd times. Now, Martin, I think, is somehow going to magically appear in our conversation. He wants to say something or ask something. Let me see if it's going to happen. Heather will be in charge of making this happen. Yes, here he comes. Martin, over to you.
And it has happened. Wow. Catherine, can I say a huge thank you for that? That was just absolutely awesome. I should introduce myself, Vicki. I have been alongside Weevolution over the last 10 years, which has been one of the great thrills of my life. You talked, Vicki, quite a lot about innovation when you were speaking to Catherine. I think the word that really struck me in listening was actually the word disruption, or the fact that actually, Catherine, what you are is a disruptor, and a disruptor for all the best of reasons. And one of the things that has really struck me over the years, and it's probably got me really angry over the years, is that people in this part of the world often look to places like Kenya and think, how do we help? And we are not nearly enough disrupted by the wisdom and the knowledge and the insights which you have to offer. And the story of Weevolution is a story of learning from people in other parts of the world how to change things. Now, I am going to be doing a wee bit of work alongside Weevolution and the David Hume Institute over the next couple of months, which is probably listening into these stories, listening into this series, and then trying to bring together a group of people who would like to think more about what we've heard, how we can be challenged, and how we can be inspired by what we've heard. So my request would be, in this webinar, there's only really been able to be 2 people that we've seen. But if you would like to be part of a conversation that sees 10, 12 other people, and we have a conversation about what Vicki and Catherine have been talking about today, then can you let people in Weevolution know, and we will try and organise that over the next couple of weeks. Is that okay, Vicki? And is that okay,
Absolutely.
Catherine?
Thanks, Martin. Really helpful. In fact, if you want to sign up to that now, why don't you just type the word yes into the chat, because then it will be tagged with your name. We'll be able to find you, follow up with you directly. So just type the word yes. Here they come. They're streaming in. The yes, yes, yes. Excellent. Excellent. So, Catherine, we're almost out of time, but Angus is asking, who would you consider as being your most powerful ally in your work? Who's got alongside you, advocated for you, and really allied with your cause?
Oh, there are many, but I'll mention 2. One is here in Kenya, my partner, my husband, and I have 2 others in the US. One is a woman who I met in 2006 here in Kenya, and she's from California. I know she's not online. And the other is from Washington State, Kedra. Kedra is online. I love and I really respect that they have lots of, they accommodate by disruption, let me use that term, intentions and my crazy kind of things that I do or I don't do. And the fact that I just cannot sit back and watch the very vulnerable in our community go down the drain. I'll shout, I'll scream. And these 2 or 3 women always listen when I do, and they come back to me.
That's great. And a final question from Wes, who's been talking about, it seems like there's lots of sort of structural problems that you're trying to deal with, reasons that women end up on the street, reasons that perhaps people are in poor relationships or can't talk to the government, all sorts of things going on, all sorts of things. What's your approach to the sort of prevention versus cure and treating the symptoms that you see of that? How much do you educate people on different relationships? How much do you do to try and get girls into school early so they've got an education to rely upon, etc.? Tell us a bit more about that.
2 ways. One is that it's got to start with me. I am happy that I am a teacher. And being a teacher, I know the value of education. My mother too was a teacher. And when I look at my children and imagine that they have all the privileges in the world, and then I meet the children who are not in school because maybe their parents cannot afford, their mothers cannot afford, because of the circumstances in their lives, then I know something must be done. And part of it is not only to educate the mother or the parent about this, but also to get to the nearest education office, government office, and find out how we can place these children in school. Lifeboat currently has 17 children that we are supporting through primary school, who were never in school before, and some of them are teen moms, both boys and girls. Secondly, is to not only disrupt the boardrooms, conversations by being there, but also to teach others about the same. And very important, in 2009, when the first women in my group said they wanted to learn skills, like what I see Revolution doing, baking, catering, knitting, whatever it is. And I went around asking the colleges, the polytechnics around, government polytechnics in Kenya. And they were like, no, we cannot take those women. They have been out in the streets. They don't have a basic education. That I said nonsense. The next thing I did was to begin raising money to build the first school for the women that we have built in Naivasha. And it is called Women One-Stop Center. I have no idea where money was going to come from, where the piece of land was going to come from. I think that is one of my most crazy moments in life. And when I asked for a gentleman in my circles, who is an architect, to make a design for the house, for the school, he asked me, Catherine, where's the piece of land? I need to visit the land and do this and that. And I said, the land is in here. So you got to give me a design because I must raise funds. And I went straight to Global Giving. I don't remember who introduced me to Global Giving platform. And they put up a project there. And we were able to raise money globally to be able to build that school. We have 2 classrooms already done. And today there's a meeting going on, a group therapy session going on in those 2 classrooms. I said, if this government cannot build a school for those who have not been to school, I will do that through Lifeboat and prayerfully. Others will come up along the way. Oh yes, you've got to be bold enough to have the movement happening from within, and nothing can stop that. It's just unstoppable.
Brilliant. What a lovely place to end, Catherine. I know you've shared some of the links to various websites where we can read a little bit more about your work. My colleagues from Wevolution will add in a link now where participants, you can sign up to hear the next talk in our series, which will be on the 20th of November at 3 o'clock, where we'll be hearing from Salomon Raydan, sorry for mispronouncing your name, who will come to us live, zooming across the world from Venezuela to talk to us about alternative credit and alternative finance. And there's also an opportunity for anyone on the call, if you want to talk more, you can join the Wevolution Facebook group, tweet us, talk to us, engage and keep this conversation going. But Catherine, I have written down 2 phrases I think I might pin to my computer screen. The women know, and you have resolutely reasserted that we must trust people to be in charge of their own lives, to find their own destiny. And if we can be enablers of giving them space to do that, gosh, the women know what they want to do with their lives. And we must also be torchbearers of hope, as you rightly described. How can we explain and talk about a different environment, one that is filled with hope for the future? Catherine, it's been a total pleasure to talk to you. I feel like I could talk to you all day, but as it is the evening there, we should allow you to go. Thank you for giving your time, but thank you particularly for inspiring a whole bunch of us this afternoon. Much appreciated.
I want to thank you, Vicki, and thank Wevolution for this opportunity, and IACD for bringing me towards Wevolution, introducing me to Wevolution. And I want to say this, that yes, we are unstoppable. If there's any time that we needed, it's this COVID time to be the torchbearers of hope. And the movement must start from within. New partners, networks, let's move it. Let's make the world have the hope that it needs right now. Thank you very much. Blessings.
Thank you, Catherine. Hear, hear. And thank you to all of you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at the next Wevolution and David Hume Institute talk. Thank you.